thrilled about today because I really love Maria and I really love Katie and I really love them together. And from the time that we met, they've experienced some things, you know, for at times they've been apart. And so they were apart a lot this year. They were not supposed to be apart, actually. Maria was in Spain, right? Katie stayed in the UK, and then COVID happened. And so there was like this huge separation. I want to ask you guys, I don't know if you know, but how many days were you apart, actually?
Almost 4 months. Almost 4 months,
yes,
right?
How many days was it? We wrote it down somewhere.
We did write it in the description of the event, I think. It was 100 and something days. But yes, yeah. I landed in Spain on the 10th of March, which I was going to do a training with Gabriela. So when I landed, I was informed that the training was going to be postponed and Gabriela's flight was cancelled. And then a few days later, the country Spain went into lockdown. So I was there until the 1st of July.
Mm. And Katie, you were in the UK. You know what I'm wondering, Katie? What was your first thoughts when you heard, okay, we might not be seeing each other for a little while?
Well, I don't know if this was true for everybody else, but the lockdown seemed to unfold. So it happened, and then we didn't know how long it would be, actually. So we kind of kept some false hope by rescheduling Maria's flight. So initially, I think I probably thought, oh, well, you know, it'll just be a little bit longer than we had planned. That's fine. And as that went on and as flights continued to get cancelled, and we just had no idea when it would be possible that she would get back to the UK. It took on a different dimension, but so it changed all the time, really. But initially I probably just thought, oh, we'll be fine, or yeah, a bit of time to myself.
Finally.
You know, I wonder if there was ever a moment where you really, really missed her. I mean, she's missable.
Ooh. So yeah, I think the moments when it was confirmed that we were so because I think I'm optimistic, so I kind of just thought, oh, it's okay, the next flight she'll be here. So I think it was every time lockdown continued or every time a flight was cancelled, then I was really reminded of how disappointed I was that we weren't together, and how nice it would be if Maria was here. And at the same time, I felt looking in the direction of, and what's possible being apart, seemed more the direction I was inclined to look in, rather than that I miss her really terribly. It didn't feel helpful. Most people were saying, oh, I'm so sorry, it must be really hard not to know. And I was like, well, it could be. Absolutely, it could be, but I'm not finding it helpful to focus on that. So I was inclined to look in a different direction, really, towards how else we could be together.
That's great. That's great.
And I remember at some point, I think it was this year, I was going one of my trips to Spain, and I said to Katie the night before I went on the trip, I said, oh, I'm going to miss you. And she said, I cannot afford to miss you.
Did I say that? That's
you
romantic.
Said that. And I said, what does she mean she cannot afford to miss me? So it got me thinking, and I realized over the time actually what she meant. And what I understood is that if you miss someone, you're wishing that things were different than they are. So then that creates suffering for yourself. So I think there's a difference between remembering something fondly versus wishing that things were different than they are at the moment. So I understood then, actually it's very wise not to miss someone, because I thought that missing someone meant you love them, right? So it's nice to miss someone. But actually, during this time of the pandemic, I thought the only way to go through this and not miss terribly Meta and Katie, Meta is our dog, is to be where I am and be present where I am and engage with what I'm have in front of me, and not wish things were different, because we just didn't know how long this was going to be.
I love that you're talking about that. In my own relationship, there are times where, my husband and I will just say, like, I'll tell him, I love you, right? And then he goes, thank you. Or he'll say something to me and I'll just say something like, oh, that's sweet. And I've shared that with other people.
Oh, there you're back. We lost your sound for a second.
Oh, all right. So I share that with people, and I've noticed a reaction when he says, oh, thank you. Because the expected, right, is I love you too, right? Like that's sort of the expected. And so they've asked me, oh my God, what do you think when he doesn't tell you I love you back? And I said, really nothing. Because when I tell him that I love him, I'm kind of expressing how I feel about him. So I love him, so the reason why I'm talking about that is because we're discovering some things about relationships, right? There are some expectations. And like you were saying, Maria, is, well, I'm going to miss you. And then realizing, well, that's just sort of expected, but is there a different way of being in a relationship? So, Katie, so Maria was having a great time.
Well, yeah, she was. I mean, we had good weather here, I think, in the UK for a couple of months of lockdown. Pretty unheard of, consistently great weather. But yeah, Maria was in Spain, eating great food, swimming.
Well, it was not all perfect.
It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. I saw it with my own 2 eyes.
It was pretty nice. Yeah, so there were occasions, I have to admit, where I was here and I was like, I'm running the whole house, I'm walking the dog all the time, I'm doing everything on my own. So I did feel, and then I could see Maria, and she looked relaxed and radiant and
tan.
So there's kind of contrasts, definitely. We were living really different lives. And it's not that that hasn't been the case before, but it was such an extended period of time that we kind of, I feel like, so a bit like not going into the missing, but looking in another direction, opened up creative ways we could connect with each other and see what's really going on for ourselves and each other. I think also the living really different lives allowed us to experience each other in new ways. Like, so Maria had hobbies, like she was suddenly cycling on the
Hobbies.
oh no, I don't know if it's a hobby, but in lockdown it probably counts as a hobby. She was cycling on what they're called, the static bike, and she was swimming, and what else you were running errands. So she was living a life I didn't know her to live. So there was this different Maria that I was seeing. That's really interesting.
Discovering.
What do you mean I swim and cycle here?
Well, but it wasn't the same. You were kind of consistent.
Right.
So yeah, I experienced Maria, and it was almost like I could observe Maria's life as opposed to live it with her. So I could discover things about you. with the distance was space to do that. Yeah.
You know, that's beautiful, because I think sometimes when we are in relationships, whether they're long-term and romantic or not, at times we miss the feeling of gratitude, you know, and just discovering and like, wow, she's pretty amazing, or he's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's true, because actually it happened the same to me. Like Katie started volunteering here locally, so she does some local gardening.
a park ranger, yeah.
That. And I was appreciating her differently. In fact, since I landed in Manchester, I think I appreciate things about her that I didn't before. And I don't know why is that. I suspect that through lockdown, we listened to each other a bit deeper and with a more open mind. Because I remember sometimes we Katie and I work together, so we are partners in life and in business. So we had Zoom meetings, and sometimes, you know, we all show up differently at different times. But I remember Katie sometimes showing in a bad mood, and instead of being affected by her mood and wanting her to change or wanted to fix it or anything, I just got curious, and we got into very interesting conversations we've never had before. For example, one day Katie said to me, actually, I feel that during this time, I need to slow down. I feel like I need to do less work. And we decided, okay, so let's meet after lunch and do a couple of hours each day, and that's fine. So that's something that we've never done before, and we run our own business. But so I think we have listened without filling the gaps or making assumptions. So that I think has allowed for a deeper appreciation.
And I wonder also if we hadn't had such a distance and we hadn't been living in independent lives, and maybe I wouldn't have expressed that as well. So somehow not only listening better, but communicating more as well. So maybe I would have been inclined or wanted to work less or slow down, but I hadn't felt permission or I hadn't felt able to. And somehow the disruption to our day-to-day lives made me able to see myself more. So it was almost like I was taking more responsibility for the relationship because I was taking more responsibility for me.
Maria, I want to go back to something that you had said about when you miss somebody, you're wishing things were different. And, you know, during this pandemic, a lot of us had family plans to get together with family. I had several plans to you know, go back and see my family. And one of the things that I was really looking forward to was actually spending 2 weeks with my little niece. I was really looking forward to spending 2 weeks with my little niece because she's like, well, she's adorable. And she's like a year, she's going to be 2 years. And I think what I'm finding, what I'm hearing a lot is I'm hearing people say, you know, I haven't seen my grandkids, or I haven't seen my kids. I haven't seen my sister. I haven't seen, you know, my niece in you know, long time. And there is this wish to see them, wish to connect. But in relationships, one of the things that I've noticed about when we experience struggle is when we wish things were different than they are. So I don't know if you want to say something else about that.
What's coming to mind is something that I said to Katie the other night, actually. And so for people that don't know our story, we were together for 6 years, which in in gay time, that's 12 years.
Years.
And then we were engaged, and I had a lot of doubts about Katie or our relationship. I just had a lot of doubts. And I broke up with Katie, and we were almost a year apart. And then we came back together. We came back together last year, wasn't it? Yeah, last year. So I was saying to Katie the other night that the moment I stopped trying to change Katie, trying to change her, she changed. So I was saying, I don't know if you change or I'm seeing you differently, but the moment I tried to wishing you were differently, you changed for me. So I think we suffer when we wish, things were different, or our partner was less this way or more that way. When we want to change what is, that creates a lot of judgment and suffering. So I think when I realized during lockdown, I'm just going to be here, and that created so much space. And the same when I let go of trying to change Katie, not because something was wrong with her, but because I was seeing through my own lenses of what was wrong, then she's changed for me. So I don't know you were what were you asking about, but that's what came to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how we have this idea. This is the way things need to be. We need to be together if we love each other. We're going to miss each other if we're apart. If I tell you I love you, then you need to tell me I love you back. If not, it means something. So I just really like the point of of the point of realizing that often struggle in relationships really comes from wanting things to be different than what they are. And when we just kind of like slip into what they are, there is this grace and sense of appreciation, and we do experience people differently.
Yeah. And I link that to I don't know if it's related or not, but I've definitely seen a change in our relationship, a massive change when our level of commitment changed. In the sense that I used to engage my doubtful thinking, so therefore it's almost like this was always a what if. Like I was not conscious of it, but it's always like a backup plan or a what if. But when I decided, I don't know how I decided that, but when I decided actually I'm going to be all in with this relationship, then the feeling of the relationship is so much deeper than it used to be for me.
Katie, do you have any observations or anything that you want to share?
Yeah. So I think my experience of maybe the things that Maria's talking about, so her moving away from doubt, or not seeing quite, not paying so much attention to her doubtful thinking, and also being all in, they're really quite recent things, but both of them, and I don't quite know that how this works or the level in which it happens, but both of those basically I experienced as creating more space for me and more space for us. And they're really quite recent, actually. I think the doubtful thinking maybe is the thing that helped us return and explore getting back together. You kind of were seeing through that a little bit then, but the commitment is the level of commitment that I experience from Maria now. I
think it's since lockdown.
Is since lockdowns. That's really recent, and it's more an energetic thing. So it's not that Maria's behaviors has changed. She's always been affectionate and loving and kind and attentive, yet all a bit withholding somehow. And that's not the same now. Like her full attention is on the relationship. And I think that's really helpful. But not necessarily in a clinging kind of way, because that's one of the beautiful things for me about lockdown, was that we found a lot more space in our relationship that I feel has remained since we've been back together, which has been about 6 weeks now, maybe 5 weeks. That we started exploring things on our own, so there was more independence and less codependence, because we let go of these ideas of missing each other, or ideas of having to be together, and we shared a lot of life. We share a lot of life, business and home and love, right? So we're always pretty much together, and it's really nice now that we can have space in that. And I think that in some paradox, the commitment creates the space. Commitment creates the freedom. That's been my experience.
So true. That's so true, because before the breakup, actually, there was more clinging and attachment. And then since we are back, and definitely since the lockdown, there's more commitment, but less, it's not attachment at all. It's paradoxical, but actually, there's more freedom. There's more freedom.
So I'm wondering how you experience that. And I just want to tell you guys something for those of you that are here in the call. If you have a question, just raise your hand and, let us know. Sarah made a funny comment a while back. I don't think I can see it. I don't know why I cannot see it, but it's really funny.
I didn't know this was a thing, gay years. So I've learned something today.
What's funny? It's funny that you mentioned that, Sarah, because I love when they said that, but it's interesting, I'm in a heterosexual relationship. And I tell you what, though, it's like whether you're in a homosexual relationship, heterosexual relationship, multiple relationships, or, all the forms that relationships take, the romantic relationships take, there seems to be this universal themes, they really do. And I just wanted to mention that because at the end of the day, it's like people wanting to love and wanting to feel loved, I mean, really. So there was an interesting point, Maria and Katie, that you guys were talking about, and I hear you deeply, is there's a way to be in a relationship that comes 100% from love, and it creates lots of freedom for your partner. I sometimes tell Will when if he's going to do something with his buddies, have a great time, have fun. He watches things that I don't choose to watch, and I'm like, wow, he's having a great time. So there's this thing, right, about, I don't know if you guys want to mention this thing about when we get more settled in ourselves, we can be with our loved ones in a different way, not requiring so much of them, not expecting so much of them, but really offering them a lot of space. And what happens, actually, people feel that, and there is a sense of wanting to give back. So I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about that, but we're trying to be super helpful with people right now because, we are separated from our families. Many of us nowadays live, like Maria's family of origin is in Spain, right? Katie, I think you live a little far from your sister and your mom, not super close, right? So we are in a world right now where we just have family everywhere. And now we are in a situation where we can really not see each other. And so we were trying to to have this space because we want to share with people there is a way to really stay connected and thrive separately and still feel this bond with our loved ones. I don't know if you guys want to mention or if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, one thing that was really helpful for me was the fact we were not together, or about the fact that we were not together, is that I had the space, really, the time and the space to think about how do I want to show up in this relationship and for this relationship. So when we are together, how do I want to be? And I saw really clearly that that's entirely up to me, and how I show up it makes a really big difference to being open to however Maria shows up. So it does. If I think I'm going to show up in love, I'm going to show up in spaciousness and in a good feeling. I can then hold if she's not, and then if she is, it's really lovely and we can connect. And if she's not, I can have space for that. And more often than not, if at least one of us is it coming from that good feeling, then a low feeling will pass. And even if it comes back, it just doesn't really matter. I could just see much more clearly. There was some choice around that, and it was up to me. And how I chose to be was the only factor in determining my experience of the relationship. So it wasn't what Maria was doing, it wasn't what she was saying, it wasn't anything really about her. My responsibility lay with what was going on for me and the relationship I was creating for me. Did that make any sense?
I think that was something that we got more respect for during lockdown is the tone of our interaction. So when it's going to sound a bit rude, but when we were having a meeting or a partner conversation, and for some reason the conversation went south, one of us will shut the computer down, like, okay, which is not very mature, right? But we shut the computer. But really, that was the beginning of us seeing more deeply that there is no point in having a conversation if you have lost that connection, right? So it's better to have one conversation a day which is connected than trying to have many conversations or staying in the conversation for a long time trying to resolve something if the feeling is not there. That's not, we saw that was not productive. So it was better to actually, right now we're not getting anywhere, let's stop, and then at some other point we'll get back to it and talk about this. So I think that we've seen that more and more. And now when we are back here, we don't shut the computer, but we are more.
It doesn't have the same effect if we do.
I think we're more graceful of taking ourselves out. Like, okay, going for a walk, or I'm going upstairs, or so taking ourselves out of the conversation because we see, this is not going anywhere. So, so I think that's something that. I don't know if it refers to what you were asking, Gabriela, but in general, if you are far from loved ones, it's nice that when you actually connect with them, you give that time to them versus trying to force connection and then that not going as you would like it to go.
Yeah, I love these 2 points, and I love how you guys are talking about it. So, when I was listening to you, Katie, it reminded me again that when we're in relationships and we're feeling struggle, we often look at our partners or at our loved one to change. It's like, you change.
Good question, Gabriela. I think how I experience it is when I am interacting with anyone, right? But in this case, I'll use Katie. When I'm interacting with Katie, there's a feeling to the conversation. Like, for example, if we are not listening and we are disagreeing, there's tension, there's stress. When I am relaxed and with an open mind, there's warmth in me. So what I've got to see is that when that connection is not there, that's actually, it's not a good idea to insist in having a conversation or resolve something. Or even and like at a business level, when the feeling when we notice that the tone of the interaction is gone south, then we know to stop now before we push through. Like, no, we have to put this proposal together, we have to send this. But now it's like, actually, we know that if we come back to it and we are in tune, then very quickly we put a proposal together. So we've seen the futility of trying to push resolving a conversation or push doing something when that is missing. Does that make sense to you?
And I think knowing that the source of the tension or the lightheartedness, I think I experience it as lightheartedness and playfulness and ease and fun. Knowing the source of that is me, not Maria, means I can then go, oh, right, well, engaging when I'm experiencing this or seeing that Maria is experiencing something similar is not a good idea, because we both understand that. We don't take offense if we go, okay, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to make a cup of tea. And what's remarkable is that when you know this, when I know the source is coming from me, I'll go and make a cup of tea and it'll pass. Whereas if I think it's coming from Maria, then I will make sure Maria knows it's coming from her and that it's all her fault, and that it must be resolved. And so I'll be looking outside me to make it all better, or changing, I don't know, how the office is set up, or something that's entirely nothing to do with it, or the piece of work is a piece of work we shouldn't be doing together, or we're never going to agree about this matter, when it's none of that really. It's just the current state of mind I'm in. Because we both understand that, it kind of passes really quickly now. So noticing the tone and then knowing the source of it are the things that are really helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful because we both have our own moods. Then when one person is in a bad mood and you are not, you can see with more compassion, because actually that also happens to me. I also get caught up, so I don't have to fix it or blame, like, we cannot get this work done because you are in a bad mood. Actually, we seek with more compassion, and I think that before I thought it was a good strategy to take you in with me, like, oh, this is urgent, Katie, you need to get urgent, right? This is important. But now I see that it's not a good strategy to bring Katie down with me. Actually, for me, it's more beneficial not to interfere with where you are. Yeah.
You know, Gabriela, I'm very curious to hear what people have heard. Was that where you were going to go?
That's exactly where I was going to go. So you can unmute yourselves. You know, I don't know if you what have you heard, what are you hearing? You know, we would love to hear from you, because this is also an opportunity to really create something powerful for, you know, from all of us. So Sue, tell us, what are you hearing?
right, what am I hearing? I'm hearing a cultural and historical moment, actually. I mean, one of the things that I've been working on for the last few years is getting out of the head and integrating body, speech, and mind, and being able to be, actually to be, and to breathe in my body instead of living my life from my head. Because I mean, at a certain level of education, you know, and particularly in Western capitalist culture, you know, we're so academic, we're so analytical, and, you know, we approach everything from the head. And I just find that quite potentially destructive, actually. And I didn't identify with sort of like any of the sort of analyzing, because I wouldn't expect my partner, lover, to have the same emotions at the same moment in time as I do. So when I need a kiss, I'll go and get one. You know, when he needs a kiss, he'll come and get one. When I feel an immense surge of love for him, I tell him I'm having a surge and give him loads of kisses. You know, I wouldn't expect him to respond in any way, you know, other than to be available for kissing purposes.
I'm available for kissing purposes. That's a great picture, Sue.
And it's like I really love just being. And I actually wondered at some point, do I have a really different, when I was a teenager, I realized I had a very different approach to relationships. I mean, I've got a very different non-upbringing to most people anyway. But over and above that, I'm a twin with a bloke. So one of my lines in life is that I even had to share the womb with a bloke. So no wonder I'm a raving feminist. However, you see, I found, because I was so close to this other human being, and we were such obvious sidekicks, you know, but not, you know, totally different, with totally different interests, and you know, feeling different things at different times is completely normal, you know. But being able to be from a body, you know, feeling, sort of like more being driven by your feeling, you know, coming from your heart and your body, and sort of not worrying about analysing sort of what is going on here. So it wouldn't cross my mind to sort of think, what is going on here? I was like, be. And you know, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's medium, you know, and sometimes it's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's all of human life. So it's like, you know, understanding that we're all like that. So I thought maybe it does come from being a twin, you know.
Well, probably not. In twin years, don't tell us in twin years. Sure, that's another thing, in twin years.
I think another thing as well, sort of something I really enjoyed learning about was the 3 positions of communication. The communicator, the listener, and the observer. So it was a skill I thought was something I really enjoyed learning. And I think if you can sit back, you know, in an interaction, the more you sit back, the more you can be, and the more your body is in the driving seat. And but that gives you time and space to slow everything down and be an observer, and you know, sort of like feel, what effect am I having on this person? What effect is this person having on me? And in the observer position, which you're still operating, you know, which you're also operating in, therefore you need to create the spaciousness, you know, to do that. What's going on between us, but not in a tremendously analytical way, in a feeling way, you know. That's some of the things that came up for me.
Great, great. So I love this idea of being, you know, and letting your partner be, letting, you know, Katie, letting her, I mean, you know, letting, what I mean by letting is just appreciating your partner in being, right? Not that you're giving them permission to be, but one of the things that was really nice, and it's been really nice to observe Katie and Maria, is they really are able to I'm going to use, I don't know how else to say it, but let each other be, you know, in the bad moods, in the moments of withdrawing or getting close, just really observing that. It has been wonderful to see. There has been conversations where the three of us were together, and I came with a certain cultural belief system, you know, about this can happen and this cannot happen. And I would observe them move through a conversation in a way that I didn't think was possible, with such grace and love that I was like, in my head just exploded, because I really didn't think that would be possible. I grew up with certain, let's say, beliefs, you know, so I just love this idea of when you just move into that space of being and observe your partner in being without struggle. I mean, the possibilities of joy are tremendous. So thank you for sharing that, Sue. Thank you. That's beautiful. Sarah, talk to us. What are you hearing?
I wrote a few things. I definitely wrote this line that struggle is wishing things were different, because I do that a lot, but I feel like I've been doing it much less since the lockdown, because in my case it was the opposite. So I was not forced to be apart. I was forced, not forced, it was a choice to be together with my parents. And that after 13 years of not living with them, that obviously came with these challenges. And so I experienced that struggle, but in a different way. And so I identified with that, maybe through different lenses. And the other thing I wrote here is this idea that commitment is different from attachment. And I don't know if it's just an age thing, but I feel that more now. It's easier for me to feel that commitment is different from attachment, and that you can have two separate identities sharing a life, but they don't need to be one identity. And I love that feeling of not, because I like my independence, and I think I've always struggled with this idea that someone would have to become like, we would become one. And I don't like that. I don't agree with that. And I like that I'm realizing that that doesn't have to happen for a relationship to be successful and to be healthy and happy and sad sometimes, but being able to go through that. And I'm always it's a really good warm feeling to see a couple just be this also open to talk about these things and struggles and happiness. And it's kind of, it shows that it's possible. So it's really nice. And I've known Maria a little bit more than Katie, but for a while, and I've been like following the story like a telenovela.
That's right.
Also public stuff, obviously, but it's really nice to come to this episode and the journey. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I love, Sarah, that last thing about commitment is different than attachment. And it's I don't know how old you are, Sarah, but I think that's something that we get confused with early on in our adulthood, about what's attachment and what's commitment and what does it mean and what does it mean if your partner does this, and then it goes like, right? Oh, it means that they don't love me and they're not
Yeah.
committed. So I just think that that's fantastic.
I'm very glad I'm growing old or older. Older, not old yet.
How old are you?
I love growing up.
Growing up. Do you mind telling us how old you are? You don't have to tell us.
I'm 31.
You're 31. Good. Great. Well, you look great. Lily, I don't know if you want to share something of what you're hearing, what makes sense for you, what's touching you, but your microphone is off. So if you want to tell us, you need to turn it on.
Yeah. Ready? Set?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. Go. Yeah. Well, for me, it's everything a matter of perspective. I mean, of course, well, not of course. In my experience, when you are in a relationship, you don't own the person. I mean, it's another person with you. You don't own it. So for me, it's not that hard, that part of being apart. That's my experience. I don't miss anyone. I don't miss people because I mean, I can get connected anytime that I want to. If I want to talk to somebody, then I give a call. I do not play the game of if he doesn't call me, I'm not gonna call, or he or she or whomever. But the thing is, if I want to get in touch with someone, or if I want to send a message or anything, I do it. I just do it. So thinking about the missing thing, I really don't miss people. I don't need the person next to me so I can be close to the person. If I miss, I mean, if I feel the need to talk to someone, I just give him a call. I don't need the physical person next to me. And thinking about relationships, I totally agree with that part. I mean, everyone has a perspective of their own reality. So I don't have to agree with anybody, or I have to agree. I mean, that's what I want. If I'm going back to this part of having a person next to you or in a relationship, that person has their own thoughts, their own needs, their own whatever they want. And if I want to be with that person, I'm going to be because I wanted to be. If I don't, I just say goodbye and thank you so much for the relationship, and that's it. Because in at the moment that I am right now in my life, I don't have time to waste, and that it is as simple as that. I'm not going to waste my time in a relationship or with a thing or with a situation that is not giving me something good. Um, I take what is useful for me, and if it doesn't work, I just let it go. I mean, I'm not gonna spend time thinking about it or spin the head, and I don't have time for that. So when, for example, I'm a person that respects a lot other people. I mean, if you have a way of thinking and I not agree with it, I'm gonna respect you. I'm not gonna try to fulfill something or try to change it or try to. No, I mean, that's your point of view. Do not agree, or if we do agree, but that's something very good. But in a matter of expecting something or missing or wanting or blah, you're not supposed to expect anything from anyone. I mean, we can say about the thing that I love you. Well, if you love me, thank you very much. If I feel the need to say I love you back, then I will say I love you back. But if not, Well, that's very polite if somebody says, thank you. I mean,
Thank you very much. Yes.
yes, I mean, thank you because you love me. But, you know, in my life and at this point of my life, I have met people that you can say, oh, you're so important to me. I mean, you don't even receive a thank you. So thank God you receive a thank you. I mean, that's very good. That's very polite. But then my experience had taught me that you're not supposed to expect anything from anyone. If you would like to give your love and your care and your everything to the people, to the world, to your partner, to your parents, then go ahead and do it. But do not expect anything. I mean, anything is coming. I mean, don't expect anything in return. If, as I said, you receive, oh, I love you too. Oh, that's so nice to hear. But don't expect it. I mean, don't expect anything. And if you miss somebody, then give a call, send a message, pay a visit. We cannot do it right now, but when we can, pay a visit. And that's it. If the other person, I mean, says thank you or it's happy to see you, well, that's applause. But maybe you're not going to be well received. I mean, maybe you're going to send a message to say, "Oh, thank you. Oh, hi. I missed you. Hi. I just wanted to say hello." Maybe the other person is not going to even answer the message. I mean, you just have to be unexpected. Do not expect anything and just go with the flow. Just
Go with the flow.
yeah. I mean, I think that's. I mean, you don't need more baggage that you already have. So just if you're a giver, be a giver and don't expect to be a receiver. Oh, that's it. That's the clothesline. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there's something, Lily, that you said, you know, and I think that's probably one of the things that we can discover through this time, whether we are apart or together, is we really don't need people next to us to feel connected.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
And also, we can feel separated if we're very close. So there is just something really powerful, like Katie was saying, you know, and Maria, about just realizing that a lot of how we experience relationship really is up to us. So you guys, I know we're coming to the hour, and I don't know if you guys want to close, how you guys want to close, but we would love to hear from you. And thank you for sharing so much, Maria and Katie, because I know that one of the things that I appreciate so much, like Sarah, I've been following, you know, this series. This is a Tokyo series. So like, okay, how is the next episode? So thank you so much for being so open and so willing to share what you've learned in your relationship. So what would you like to do? What would you like to say in closing?
Well, thank you for listening, I guess. Thanks for turning up and having an interest in hearing the latest episode of where we're at, what's going on. And it was really lovely to hear from each of you. It's really enriching to kind of hear things spoken back or to hear your perspective. So I really appreciate that. And thank you, Gabriela, for your questions. Yeah, and your listening. So it was really enjoyable. Thank you.
To you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here this evening, and it's very nice to have this space to share and hear from each other. And this is something that, as Gabriela was saying, we've been doing through lockdown and we want to keep doing. And so you have any suggestions about any topics or you know, any feedback you have will be very welcome. We want to create a supportive community and support everyone to thrive together. So yeah, just let us know if there's something that you would like us to explore or bring someone to talk about something. We'll be happy to do that.
Great. So thank you so much, and then stay tuned